Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Bittersweet Uncomfyness podcast. Are we procrastinators? What is procrastination and why do we procrastinate? Those are questions that I've been asking myself for quite some time now because I found myself always postponing certain things that I wanted to do or avoiding certain tasks that I knew I wanted or should be doing. And I found myself doing a million other things instead. And I'm sure that most of you had this as well with one task or the other. So in this episode, I will be sharing my findings and also discussing how we can stop procrastinating and start doing instead. So before we start, as usual, I'm Joe and I hope you're not comfortable. But if you are, then let's get uncomfortable together. Hi! So as I said in the introduction, there are a couple of things that I've been meaning to start for quite some time now. For example, I've been wanting to do this 50-day challenge, where you have certain tasks that you need to fulfill every day for 50 days in a row. It's a self-discipline, a determination, and an ambition kind of training that helps us unlock our true desire and our true power. And I've been meaning to do this for over a year now, but I never started. I always said I'm going to start on Monday or on Friday or whatever. Or even when I did start, I told everyone I'm starting this Project 50 challenge and so on and so forth, but I never did. Or I tried the first day and I didn't do 2 or 3 tasks and then I stopped. And then I asked myself, why have I been laying this off for so long? What am I scared of? And I dove a bit deeper into what procrastination is to begin with, because I wanted to understand why we do it. So procrastination, the word comes from the Latin procrastinus, which means belonging to tomorrow. That means we postpone things to tomorrow or we avoid them altogether. We start finding a million things we can be doing instead of the task that we actually want or should be doing. For example, if you need to study for an exam and you find yourself always finding other things to do. You need to clean the kitchen, you need to do your laundry, you need to draw, or whatever. There are 100 things that you think about and you start doing them just to avoid sitting down and studying for this exam until you're pressured to do so. And this is also something that I used to do a lot. When I needed to study for an exam, I always started way too late. I had a lot of time and I knew that I could be starting to study or could start preparing myself for this exam. But every time I sat down to study, something else caught my attention. Something else distracted me. And at first it's easy to blame all the circumstances and everything happening around you. And it makes you feel good. Like, yeah, I didn't study because my friend called and we went out, or my friend wasn't doing well, or my dog needed a walk, or whatever. You start finding excuses for yourself that make you feel okay with the fact that you didn't do the task that you wanted, right? And this leads us after a while to be frustrated. During the day, you know that you should have been studying, but you're not. And in your mind, you keep hearing the voice that you need to study, and it drives you to become a bit anxious. And this anxiety gets bigger and bigger every time you postpone this certain task. Until at one point, you start blaming everyone around you for not being able to do this task. It happened to me as well, where I started blaming my family and my friends for not being able to study or to work or whatever, because I just needed any outer circumstance to take the blame because I didn't want to blame myself, because I didn't want to believe that I was a procrastinator. But I found out in my research that there is no such thing called a procrastinator. You are not a procrastinator. It's a habit. Procrastination is merely a habit. Just like any habit, you can have it and you can change it and you can replace it with better ones, as I talked about in previous episodes. You can just look at this habit and find out why do you procrastinate at certain things. Is there a certain uncomfyness in it? Is there any reason you don't want to do this task? But I want to put something clear. Procrastination has nothing to do with laziness. Because lazy people are lazy and they're fine with it. They don't want to do anything. But when you procrastinate, you actually want to do, or you know you should be doing it, but you just distract yourself with anything else. So it's not laziness. It is actually way deeper than that. And after my research, I found out that the more we procrastinate, the further away our goals go. Because this task that you are trying to avoid is one that can get you a step closer to wherever you want to go. Whether it's study for an exam, this can get you closer to your diploma. Whether it's starting your online business, if you sit down and you research products, this is also the first step, but you avoid it because you feel like the way is way too long. So let's dive into the reasons of why we truly procrastinate. Reason number one is decision paralysis. What this means is we have so many options nowadays. We have so many distractions at the tip of our fingers. In our phone, we can Google 100 things. We can open Instagram and waste at least 2-3 hours on it, or TikTok or whatever. And therefore, we cannot even take a decision of when to start something or when to do something, because there are so many different things that we would want to be doing at the same time. Have you ever ordered food from a restaurant? I'm sure you did. And if you did, I'm sure you always ask yourself, what do I want to order? What do I want to eat? And this debate takes way longer than it should because you have too many options. It's very hard to take this decision. And sometimes you end up not ordering anything and eating in. So this is also a form of procrastination because you couldn't take a decision of what to do. And the same thing happens to us on a daily basis. Every day we're confronted with so much outside of our bubble that we don't know where to start. And therefore we should start just writing down our tasks with where and when we want to do them, just to have it set in stone, to know, okay, this task is happening. And then it's easier to take a decision when you know that you're doing this task at 5 p.m. in your living room. Because if someone calls you and says, let's hang out at 5 p.m., you'll say, I'm sorry, I already have something at 5 p.m. because you already planned when to do it. And therefore, it's easier for you to take a decision and say no. The second point is taking time and life for granted. This is a point that struck me, that really resonated with me, because when we postpone something, okay, for example, I want to start a business, and I say, okay, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start the research tomorrow, or I will subscribe to that channel to learn more tomorrow. Who told you that you're going to be here tomorrow? Who assured you that tomorrow is going to come? And this is something that throughout our life, we take it way more for granted than we should. Just because you don't want to do this task, you're postponing it into an unknown future. You could just, get sick, for example, and not be able to do what you wanted to do tomorrow. I'm not just going to talk about death, but anything could happen. So you only have this moment right here to start. So if you know that you want to do this now, just start doing it now, because you have no idea what's going to happen in an hour, in 2, in 10, in a day or a month or a year. So this is why we shouldn't take life for granted, and we should truly enjoy and take advantage of the time we have here, because it's limited and we have no idea about the future. Point number 3 is a lack of self-discipline. Because if we know that we want to do this, or if we know that we should be doing this and we don't, that means we don't have enough discipline. And this can also be driven back to our self-love and seeing ourselves as worthy people. Because you will be disciplined if you believe in yourself. But the lack of discipline comes when you don't believe that you're able to do this task. Which brings me to point number 4, so they're both combinable. Point number 4 is fear of failure or not being adequate for this task. This is also a big reason of why we decide to postpone things, because we feel like right now in my mindset, in my life, I am not able to start this. For example, for me, this was the case with this podcast. I've been wanting to start this podcast for, I think, 1 or 2 years now. And every time I said, no, I'm not ready. I'm not going to be good at it. I'm going to fail. I'm going to start the first episode and it's going to overwhelm me. And this was the reason I never actually took action. The same thing with this Project 50 challenge. Every time I said I wanted to start it, I felt like right now my life doesn't allow me to. So I blamed my circumstances. I wasn't living in the right apartment. My family needed too much support. My friends needed too much help. I kept telling myself those things in order for me to avoid starting Project 50 and for me to be okay with not starting Project 50. So this is just a fear that you have, but you will never know if you're good at it or not if you don't try. And you will never start something being extremely good at it. It's only after you try and after you start working on it that you actually start bettering yourself and improving every single day. So eliminate this fear. This fear lives only in your head. It's protecting yourself from hurt. Because when you start something and you feel like you didn't do it good, it hurts you. It hurts your pride. It hurts your ego. And you're also afraid, in most cases, that people will see it. People will see it and judge you. Well, they should. They should see it and they should judge you because you shouldn't even care. If they want to do that, it's their thing to talk about. They have nothing else to do other than analyze what you're doing and go through over your life. That doesn't even matter to me or to you. I was so terrified of starting this podcast because I was like, what are other people going to think? Because this is literally something that I'm posting on social media, on YouTube, on Spotify. People will hear it and people will have opinions. And at first I was scared that my close circle will find it not good or that I will be a failure in their eyes. But then I realized the only opinion that genuinely matters to me is mine. And right now I'm truly happy that I took this decision and that I eliminated this fear. Because for other people, this podcast might be a failure. They might say it's not working out or the episodes are not good or whatever. But other people like it. And those are the people I care about because those are the people that are listening and those are the people that I did this podcast for. But originally, I did this podcast for myself because I promised myself to do it because I wanted to do it. Point number 5 is probably the most important one. It's stress. We procrastinate because we're stressed. Why are we stressed? Because we always think about the big goal. You don't want to take the first step today because the big goal is way too far and I need security right now. For example, I'm going to give you an example for you to understand it. If you're starting a business or if you want to make music for a living, you want to learn an instrument and you want to make a living out of it. Your vision is big. Your goal is to have the big company or to have big concerts or whatever. But today, the only thing you can do is the first step. And the first step will not bring in the money that you imagine that comes with your goal. And therefore you avoid it because you need the money. You need this financial stability right now. And by doing this task, you feel like you're wasting 2 or 3 or 4 hours because those 2 or 3 or 4 hours are actually not getting you any money or any stability in whatever sense you need it. And therefore you say, okay, I'm not going to dedicate these hours for this. I'm going to go work at a different job instead and earn my money there because I need to pay my bills. I completely understand it. I have a job as well because this is not paying. But what I'm trying to say is if you truly want to do something, just do it and don't have expectations of it working out quickly, of it being tied with money or anything. Just start. Every door will unlock when it's time for it to unlock. When you stress yourself too much about something, you will never start. For example, also an example that I just thought about, is reading. Reading helps us in almost every facet in our life. Whatever you want to do, there are books that can help you educate yourself on the topic, whether it's music, whether it's business, whether it's podcasts, whether it's psychology, whatever. There are so many books, and reading could truly help us just have better skills and improve ourselves or whatever. But we don't want to dedicate these hours for reading because it's literally hours that are not paying us anything right now, that are not bringing us any value except for the value in our minds. But if you're in a stressful situation in your life and if you don't have the financial stability, I understand why you tend to procrastinate more often. People who are less stable financially and less free tend to procrastinate more because they feel like they cannot waste time not earning money to pay their bills. There's this fear the whole time. And we need to eliminate this. Find a way to pay your bills and at the same time follow your passion, because at one point your passion might be able to free you from the job you don't want. And this is the hope of every person who starts a business, who starts a podcast, who starts to play an instrument, wanting to become a musician. So stop thinking about the big goal and think about only the step that you have to take right now, because you know what your goal is and you will work towards it. But the only thing you can do for that goal today is, for example, read a chapter or a book about it, record the first episode, record your first solo, or start your research, or you start working on your business plan. Those are the only things you can do right now. They might not bring you value now, but you need to play the long game. And you need to understand that by doing this task, you're playing the long game. Whether it's also studying for an exam. The diploma is not, you're not going to have your diploma after one exam. You need multiple exams. It's a 3-year process, 4-year process, sometimes even 6. But this is the beauty of it. You take it one exam at a time. Otherwise, I could also say, well, I'm not going to do this exam because it's not going to get my diploma. And this way, it's never going to happen. Your goal is never going to be fulfilled. So you need to take the first step. You need to go one step at a time, literally just climbing up the ladder until you arrive at your destination. You might not arrive at your destination. It's not guaranteed. But you're working towards it, and while working, you will see other opportunities arise. But if you don't do anything, nothing will happen. So I counted 5 of the most common reasons for procrastination. I will repeat them. The first one is decision paralysis. We cannot take a decision because we're so distracted, because we have so many options. And we have so many ways to just postpone something because something else came up. Our phone is buzzing the whole time, or my dog is weeping, or whatever. You just find reasons not to do it. So decide that you want to take action and decide when and where. Point number 2 was taking time and your life for granted. By postponing, you're always postponing into an uncertain future. You have no idea what's happening tomorrow. You have no idea what's happening today, later. So when you postpone, you need to know that you're literally just avoiding it, because it might happen that you will never get to do what you wanted to do in the first place. Point number 3, lack of self-discipline, which shows a lack of self-worth and self-love. Because if you loved yourself and if you feel like you're worthy, you would be disciplined enough to actually work on yourself to get closer to your goal. So if you find that you are worthy and you are strong enough, you will be disciplined enough and you will work hard at it. Which brings us to point number 4, fear of failure or not being adequate for completing this task. Eliminate this as well. You don't need to have this fear, because this fear literally adds nothing except for nothing. Because if you keep fearing it, then it's not going to work out. Even if you start the task with this fear in your mind the whole time, you're literally attracting failure because you're not going all in. You're going to always be 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on soil. And this way you will never get to actually swim and find out if you can swim or not, because you'll always be too careful. And this is what a fear of failure can do to you. It can just make you play it too safe and not risk enough, which can lead to the failure. So eliminate this fear. Say, I'm gonna risk it. Go try it out. Do the first task today. The 5th one was probably the most important one. Stress. When we find ourselves in a stressful situation and we keep thinking about the big goal instead of the first task at hand, we always tend to believe that this task will not add any value, and I'm so stressed in my life right now, I need to do something different that can actually help me stabilize my life or have more money or whatever. So after I summed up those 5, I also researched a little bit more, and I found a very, 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 very awesome motivational speaker. Her name is Mel Robbins, and she published a book. It was a best-selling book in 2017 called The 5-Second Rule. And she talks exactly about procrastination. So I checked the book out, and it is amazing. It truly can unlock multiple doors for you, not only if you procrastinate, but in everything you do. Because the 5-second rule just says, whenever there is something you know you should do, but feel uncertain, afraid, or overwhelmed, count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move and do it. And what she recommended is, after the countdown, when you get to 1, start the task and tell yourself you're only going to work at this task for 5 minutes. So you count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you allow yourself to work for 5 minutes on your online shop, on your podcast, on your instrument, or whatever. 5 minutes. If you want to stop after 5 minutes, feel free to do so. But the research also showed that over 80% of people who start find their flow within the 5 minutes and keep working for as long as they need to. And they will never procrastinate at this task again, because they found their rhythm and because they found out that they actually want to do this. Because by never actually taking the first step, you will never know if you truly want to do this. For example, for me, if I had never recorded the first episode of this podcast and never published it, I would have never known if I liked doing a podcast or not. If you want to play an instrument and you never actually pick up your guitar and play the first tones or learn the first chords, you will never know if you actually enjoy playing the guitar. The same thing with the business. So if you never take the first step, if you keep procrastinating, you're setting your goal and your vision on something you don't even know if you like. So when you start this task, even if it's only for 5 minutes, you will find out within those 5 minutes whether you like it enough to pursue it for longer or not. If not, you will stop this task and you will automatically question yourself if you actually enjoyed these 5 minutes. And if you find yourself flowing for an hour or 2 or 3, then you probably enjoy doing it. And this is how you can also differentiate whether you actually want to achieve your goal or you set this goal because outer circumstances made you think that you want to build this humongous business or play this concert or whatever. So thank you very, very much for listening to this episode once again. I enjoyed recording it. I enjoyed the research for this, and I enjoyed all your feedback from last week's episode. I hope you like this episode, and if you do and you know someone who procrastinates, send this episode over to them and tell them about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule. Thank you so much to my producer Amer, as usual. He's going to be plugged in the description, where you can also find his work and also book a session with him or anything you need. And as usual, love you all. See you all next week.